because a lot of brands nowadays just start to do e-commerce, so it might be a little bit too much if they start with all marketplaces and brand site all at one time. So depending on the position of the brand, some might just start with having a brand site first, some might just start with a marketplace first. Say in China, mostly they start with Tmall first, and then when they are getting used to selling online, getting the operations and understanding the online customer behavior, then they would expand further onto other channels. It all makes sense, and in fact it's not just online, the different channels in online, but also of course people also talk about O2O these days. It has to all link together. It's just that how would you start, and whether you really jump to a comprehensive channel mix with O2O and mobile and everything all at one time is a little bit too much for most brands, so they all start with step by step. But of course for most luxury brands with more prestigious brand image, they would like to start with brand site more than marketplaces. You could say that of course most brands, they have less expectation on their brand e-commerce site versus marketplaces. But then because there are also quite a lot of things that you can achieve with your brand site compared to marketplaces, your control on the customer database, your full control of the whole customer experience, ability to do O2O and stuff like that. Many of those are more difficult to do, or it's not possible to do in marketplaces. If you don't have the time for a standalone site, then of course you can always consider going to marketplace to begin with. Tmall also require you quite a bit of sophistication yourself, because there's still quite a lot of work to do. But then there are other marketplaces that would require less effort on the brand side, less resource required from you. But of course they deliver less as well. So it all depends. And nowadays for many brands, that's generate substantial revenue from Tmall already by now, or other e-commerce sites. So I would say people do have to start looking at it seriously as a revenue generating exercise. But at the same time, it all depends on the stage of the company. You don't necessarily would expect a whole lot at the first year. It just takes time for the company, especially for many brands who has not been selling online before. There's a lot of change in terms of the mentality, the way you prepare things, and it does take time to get it to take off. Even to know what inventory product mix that would sell well in a particular channel could be different from your existing offline channel. So you have to look at it seriously for the, let's say, 2-3 years down the line. But for the first year, for us, we mostly recommend customers to treat it as a pilot or a test, but with the promise that in 2-3 years it will be substantial enough. And for many brands, it's already substantial enough for them to be a serious business by itself. We also look into overall internet digital as a viable marketing platform, not necessarily just for the e-commerce, but for the brand overall as well. So you cannot ignore, say you have e-commerce and you don't do social, or you just do social and you don't do e-commerce. It's complement to each other. By independently, it's important enough for the brand, but when you add them all together, it's more powerful. The marketplace itself changed very quickly. A few years ago, JD was not even a marketplace. Now it is, and in fact now all the major e-commerce players are marketplaces, allow you to have a flagship store in there. Starting 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it's all changed. And then if you look into the whole digital ecosystem, the social media, at one point it was just Ren and Kaixin, and then we have Weibo and then Weixin. And you look at everything, the mobile channels evolving very quickly, and what was not doable a year or two before now is a norm. So you have to catch up and understand and adjust your strategy accordingly as well.
Thanks, Charles. Those were some wonderful insights on branding for e-commerce. Stay tuned for more from our Omnichannel Asia experts.